Are you looking to go on a cruise? Well, let's find out. Will it be smooth sailing? We got all the details for you right now. Hey everybody, welcome back to Local Love. It's Amanda. And it occurs to me that I don't really talk to you guys about what I do as a day job. Many of you may not know. Those of you that know me, you know. But I work at a travel agency as a customer care representative. I actually chat with guests via our online chatting system, but I've worked in other departments. I've worked on the phones as customer service. I've worked as a supervisor, and I've worked in the groups department. So I've got a pretty vast knowledge of our company, being there 10 years now. So I'm not going to reveal the company name. For those of you who know, you know, but you know, it's not necessary for what we're going to talk about today. So here's the thing that a lot of people are asking about, and I figured this might help some of you that maybe either are thinking about cruising, because that's what we specialize in, or are thinking about, you know, in general, want to know what it's going to be like when you go on a cruise. Now, this is going to be brief, and I'll probably cover more in future video, but basically we're going to go over some basic things that are going to be changing. So let's go all aboard. All right, guys, so what can you expect when you cruise this time? All right, so some of the requirements that have changed, COVID requirements. This is pretty important to know, because if you don't do this, you will not be able to sail. They haven't decided on whether vaccines are going to be necessary in the future, but as of right now, whether you have a vaccine or whether you don't, this restriction is still going to apply to you. So what is required? All right, so let's say you book yourself a cruise and you're getting close to time to sail. What do you need to do? Well, within 5 days to 24 hours prior to sailing, you will need to be able to provide a negative test from COVID within a 5-day to 24-hour period of time prior to you arriving at the port to get on board the ship. Okay, so that's 5 days to 24 hours. Your test needs to be negative in that time period. Okay, now, when you arrive at the port, be prepared, because you are going to be put through another COVID test. And it will need to be negative for them to then be able to board you onto the ship. Now, I know a question that many of you are going to have that a lot of us just do not have answers for yet, because the cruise lines really haven't told us more. I think they're still formulating a lot of things themselves. Well, what if my test is negative? Will I lose all my money? Because with cruising, for those of you who don't know, typically once you're past final payment, usually you start accumulating penalties. It'll start at the level of losing your deposit, and then it'll go up to 50% of your cruise fare, and then it goes up to 75% of your cruise fare, all the way up to 100% of your cruise fare will be lost, depending on when you were to decide to cancel it. Okay, so let's say that nothing happened and you didn't cancel, okay, and you're ready to go, and you get that first test and everything seems fine, and then lo and behold, you get to the ship and for whatever reason you test negative. Well, this time we don't have an answer from the cruise line specifically on what they're going to allow for. So what I always recommend to my customers, until we hear more on whether they're going to say, okay, here's your money back, or if it's still going to be a loss and you gambled like you would always gamble, because that's always been the rule even before, is that you would need to be able to be there and everything need to be accomplished within that time period to be able to get on board the ship. So those penalties are always the same. It has always been the same. However, will the cruise line back you up and say, oh, I'm so sorry to see that you had a negative test, and at that point, give you your money back? We don't know the answer to that yet. So here's what I recommend to all of my guests that ask about this, is make sure that you invest in a good travel protection. Now, our company does work with a company called Leisure Care, and they are absolutely wonderful. And if, let's say that did happen, that's something that they would actually cover. So make sure that you investigate a good travel protection company and make sure that you have that in place well before your sail date, just in case something were to happen. 5 days prior is short notice, and you typically would lose all of your money if you had to cancel a cruise at that time. So we hope that something else will come out and we'll be able to learn more before cruises start back again, and that's something else to discuss actually. Okay, so here's something that a lot of you are also wanting to know. When does cruising start back? Great question. The starting date for most of the cruise lines this time is going to be May 1st for cruises that are 7 nights or shorter. So you're probably asking, what if I want to go on an 11-night cruise, or if I want to go on an 8-night cruise? Unfortunately, we don't have those available at this time. So they will be back and available again. Most likely, we're hoping for the fall that we'll be getting our longer night sailings. I think they're waiting to see how the shorter night sailings work out before they allow for anything else and longer nights. They don't want you guys to be trapped out there and everything going wrong. So they want to make sure that everything's in order to be out and on a longer night sailing, because the further out at sea you are, the harder it is to get you to a medical facility if you need help. So we want to just be sure everybody's safe, and I know that's where the cruise lines' minds are on this. Okay, so with that in mind, that won't mean everybody's going to start back. I'm sure some of the cruise lines will decide not to. Some of them may decide to only open up certain ports. It could vary, and since it's not starting till May 1st, we haven't got final word on what everybody is doing. So we are hoping to get more information on that as well. All right, guys, so that is how it's going to work in order to be able to get on board. And of course, you'll still need the same type of, documentation. If you're a U.S. citizen, typically we recommend passports for everybody, everyone. And let me tell you why. There are options to travel without a passport. So let's say that you want to leave out of Miami, for example, and you want to return back to that same port, and you're all U.S. citizens. Okay, there is an option to use a certified copy of your birth certificate and a state ID with picture or driver's license, something, a government issued ID. And then of course, if your name is changed and is different from your birth certificate, you would need name change paperwork too. Were you adopted? Have you been married? Things like that. They're going to want to know, you'll need the paperwork to show why your name has changed. So having said that, what that type of identification will not do is, let's say you get out to the Bahamas. We'll just use Bahamas as an example. And something happens and you can't get back on the ship. Well, guess what you cannot do with a driver's license and state ID? Fly home. Yeah, so you really want to consider investing in a passport. They're well worth it. They last for 10 years for adults. I think it's only 3 or 4 years for children. You'd have to check on that one for me. I'm not positive. But for adults, they're good for 10 years. So it is worth the investment if you're somebody who plans to be traveling more and more. All right, guys, so having said that, here's something else that the cruise lines are working on. Many of you have probably gone on cruises, or maybe you haven't. And at any rate, when you get off the ship and you decide to go on a tour or activity with a group, they're called shore excursions, okay? Or excursions, tours, you can call it how you like, but that's what they typically call them, as shore excursions. And now, because of everything going on, a lot of the places we're going to be visiting want to be sure that any cruise traffic coming in is going to be looked after. So here's what's going to be happening. Currently, all the cruise lines are going to be requiring that you purchase shore excursions through them. I know. I know it's not ideal, but a lot of times you may end up doing that a lot of times anyway. So you won't be able to get off the ship and just explore. If you do not have shore excursions, you will not be able to get off the ship. Okay, and some cruise lines might require that you purchase them prior to getting, boarding. And if you don't, you may not be able to get on the ship. It just depends on the cruise line. Everybody's policy is a little different. But you will definitely need shore excursions to get off the ship at any of the ports, period. That could change between now and May. That's just what we've been told the current policy is going to be at this time. And basically, what does that mean? It means that anywhere from about $20 a person and up, they'll have a variety of shore excursions. They may offer some that are less, simply because of the situation of not being able to get off the ship without one. Okay, so you will be required to have a shore excursion booked in order to exit the ship. And that's going to be for everyone in your party, unfortunately. And I'm sure it's a requirement that a lot of the countries we're visiting are probably asking us to do. Having said that, the other thing is, it means that once you're on that excursion, you have to stay with the tour group. If you leave the group, you could be denied boarding back on board the ship. And we don't want that to happen to you. It's not something that's fun for anybody. We don't have fun dealing with it. We know you're not having a good time. So you do have to stay with the group. Now, because of that, I know a lot of you are like, but I want to go shopping, or I want to go get a drink, you know. I'm sure they're going to offer additional excursions for things like shopping trips and things like that. The cruise line's well aware that a lot of people like to go and get their souvenirs, and they want to have time to do that. So I'm sure a lot of the tours will be starting to try to add on a little bit of time for that. At least we hope so. Okay, guys, so having said that, masks. Okay, this is a big one. I know not everybody is a fan of masks. None of us really like wearing them. We're not like, oh yeah, I'm digging wearing my mask. And I don't think anybody's really stoked about it, okay? But for everyone's safety, whether you've been vaccinated, whether you have medical conditions, it really doesn't matter. They're going to require you wear a mask if you're on board the ship in a public area. So if you're on board the ship in a public area, you are going to be required and asked to wear a mask. And they will enforce it. They will ask you to do that, or they'll send you to your room. They could disembark you. You know, there are set rules that you'll be asked to follow if you want to be on board a ship. Okay, now hopefully the cruise lines won't be that cutthroat about it, but they are going to require it. So you will be asked to wear a mask. You'll have to wear one on arrival. You'll have to wear one in any public area on board that ship, period. Now, shore excursions. I'm sorry to tell you guys, you're going to have a mask for that as well. The only time that you will not be expected to wear a mask is if you're in the process of eating something or drinking something. And I think that possibly when you're swimming, you won't need a mask. I mean, it doesn't make a lot of sense to have a mask on that, you know. So I assume that that's one of the things that will be happening. And pools will be open. They'll just be limited. Shows on board, yes sir, they'll still have their shows on board the ships, but you will be asked to make a reservation because they are having to limit how many people will be able to be in the auditoriums and the theaters at one time. All right, so believe me guys, they're doing this for your safety. They're not getting any benefit from, you know, adding these extra precautions on just for fun. No, this is being done for your safety, for their crew members' safety, for the people in the islands' safety, for all the places you're visiting. It's just something that needs to happen. Now, a lot of you have also been wondering about how's dining gonna work. You know, I usually like to go and grub on the buffet. No problem, you can still do that. It is going to look a lot different, however, okay? So basically now, and I guess every cruise line will handle it a little different, but my understanding is no matter how they handle it, you will not be serving yourself at the buffet. Now, I don't know how long that's going to happen, or how, you know, if that's going to be a permanent change. We don't know what's going to happen in the world in the next few years. But right now, it is set up that the crew members will be serving you. Now, I don't know if they're going to ask you to pick a seat and fill out a card, or if they're going to have you come up in smaller amounts and just point at things. I don't know that. My guess is they're going to have you seated and have you pick from a variety of things on a card so that they can fill it like in order that they deliver to your table. Okay, so it just needs to be done. The less people handling things, the better. As always, they will have sanitation spots on board. They always have, simply because another issue on cruising has always been the narwhal virus, and one of the big ways to avoid that is keeping your hands clean and washing your hands and sanitizing. Okay, so that won't change. All right, guys. So a lot of you are probably wondering, well, what kind of precautions have they made on board? Well, they've changed the ventilation system so that they can make sure that everybody's going to be safe, and they've worked really hard on getting everything the way it needs to be. All right, so they've also been working on a brand new and state-of-the-art sanitation system. So they're sanitizing things on a constant basis, and we don't necessarily get that, we don't get the up to moment idea of what each cruise line is going to be doing, unfortunately, at my company yet. Now, I'm sure as the sailings start back, we'll get more and more information from not only the cruise lines, but from guests who have actually been on a cruise already and are calling in. They'll tell us stories about how things went and what can be expected. It does happen. All right, so that's a little bit of what's going to be going on in cruising for now, and hopefully this helps some of you that are planning to go on a cruise vacation. We certainly don't want to deter you from doing that. Cruising is so much fun, and I'm sure it will still be very much fun. They're going out of their way to make sure that they still have all the great entertainment, all the wonderful food, and the things you want to do, including gambling if that's what you're into. I know it's where I'm always at, that casino. They get my money. But there are going to be some new rules. We knew this going in, that it was going to be very different. So I hope that doesn't discourage any of you from cruising. Other than that, guys, the only other thing I can think of that's important is if any of you have any underlying health conditions. Very important that you double check, depending on your condition, on whether that's going to limit you from being able to cruise, or if you're going to have to get your doctor to fill out a fit for travel form. So there are going to be much stricter regulations for your safety. So basically that's what we're looking at. All right, guys, well, that's all I've got for the moment, and we look forward to bringing you more information as we get it. And I know this wasn't our typical Local Love video, but being in that job every day, and that's what I do when I'm not on these videos for the most part. That's where I'm at, is usually working. I think there's a lot of people out there that don't ask the questions. So if you're looking to cruise, maybe this could help some of you, and that's what I really wanted to do, and I hope it did. So thank you guys so much for watching. If you like what we're doing, make sure you give us a thumbs up. We certainly appreciate it. Comment down below. Maybe some of you have already done some test cruising before they opened it up, before they closed them all down. Maybe you guys have already booked your cruise and the cruise line's giving you more information. Let us know. We'll update our information too. We appreciate that. And in general, just let us know what you think we're doing is cool, or if you don't like what we're doing. Either way, we want to hear from you, okay? So let us know. And make sure that you remember that this is all for safety's sake. It is an annoyance. We know that it's not always the best, but I think that together we can still make sure that you have an absolutely wonderful time on your vacation. All right, guys, we're going to catch you next time. Peace.